I guess, ready. Um, so I guess I'll call this, I'm gonna call it the new CCS IT group meeting to order for today, um, September 17th, 2024. Um, and I think our first order of business then will be to approve the meeting minutes of last meeting on June 18th. Do I have um, someone to motion to uh, to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings at last minute,
All
or the
right.
minutes of the last meeting.
Thanks. A second?
I'll second it.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. The meeting's approved for or minutes rather approved for June 18th, 2024. All right. Cool. Um, First I left some stuff here for I don't know what. You know what? Let's get hear from Bob, I guess, first, because that's the first thing on here. Any reports from you guys? I know at the very least, I think a lot of us are curious as to what happened on Sunday, if you have any details to provide about that, about the outage.
Um, it was typical. So we have been having problems with the overnight processes related to online material for some time now. And a patch was put in place uh, to um, to correct that last week, but um, we still experienced the problem on Sunday. So the saga continues.
I see, I see. Wish there was a better way to, I guess, for them to find out it's not working other than us calling them sometimes. That's for
Um,
sure. So,
we can take proactive we can take a proactive approach to the problem. So usually by 7, 8 o'clock, we can determine based on the load on the system whether we're going to see that problem or not. So that is something that I'll relay back to the staff at CCS that we need to take a more proactive approach.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those unfortunate things that happened over the weekend, right? So,
It is the worst time, yeah. Yeah.
and
We,
hopefully,
we we do also need to make sure that everybody on staff who is on call on the weekends has access to the information that'll allow them to determine whether there is a pending problem. Um, so we'll take care of that as well.
okay. Well, and hopefully CCS can patch it so that it fixes it at some point. Probably also, not CCS, Polaris.
Polaris, yeah. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, this dates back quite a bit. There was a discussion at one point whether to stop the overnight processes. We would no longer, on the Polaris server, there would be no longer an update of the online material. Patrons would still be able to get to the online material, but through the vendor themselves. So that never happened. So that may be up for discussion again.
Okey-doke. Do you have any other updates as far as migration or anything else?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm going to take up a little bit of your time
All righty.
on this. So you may be able to see a screen full of words, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. So I do just want to walk through some bullet points here, and anyone can stop me along the way if they have questions or comments. So the first date that will affect you guys is Thursday evening, which is September 26th, and they're going to copy production to training. The sole purpose of this is for the PAC and the SIP redirects, which I'll talk about in a second. Friday the 27th is the last full day of online activity before we go down offline. After the close on Friday, the 27th, you should be disabling your sorters. They should no longer try to connect to production. Same with your self-checks, unless you're going to place those in offline mode. If you have a security gate, you may need to deal with that because of RFID. We are going to disable, the CCS staff will disable the telephony. Patrons won't be able to call in to get status on their records, on their record. They will not be able to, or they won't get phone notices as well. So anything that's pending. So in other words, if there were any pending phone notices that needed to go out that day, they'll go out when we come back up on the 1st. CCS staff will take care of the e-commerce, disabling that in the pack. Production pack is going to be redirected to training after close on Friday. And that was the sole purpose for the copy on the from production to training, so that patrons could continue to search the catalog. Things may be a little out of date, but SIP also will be redirected, and that's so that third party can do authentication. On Friday the 27th, the production server is going to go offline. So again, the status of SIP and the API. The database on training is static. SIP will continue to authenticate that against that static database. New patrons being registered over the downtime will not be in the database. API is going to be shut down. So any services that use API, unless they have an alternate method for allowing patrons to use their service, they won't be able to authenticate against the database, and likely your patrons won't be able to use the service. So Mieko sent me this. I'm actually going to send all of this. I'm going to send this document to you all after the meeting. So we don't necessarily need to read through that, but you can once you receive this. So to prepare, again, a lot of this came from Mieko and Deborah, the member services staff. If you intend to use your self-checks in offline mode, they've asked that you test it before September 19th. Make sure you test your remote offline client. I've listed a doc here with instructions how to do that. Most people, I'm sure, have already done it. If you're worried that you might lose internet connectivity, or that, that's a possibility, be prepared to use local offline. The instructions are here to, download it, install it, and maintain it. And then the more instructions here on how to use the local offline client. Make sure you are signed up for CCS News and the listserv. I'm sure everybody's on the listserv. I would venture to say everybody's signed up for CCS News. The CCS staff will communicate to the libraries through the CCS News throughout the downtime to let them know the progress of the migration, and also to let them know when they can come back up online. So the IT staff needs to stay tuned to the CCS News. I've asked that communication, the all clear, come on back online, go out on the IT listserv as well. So I know that we've had a little trouble with IT listserv, some of the listservs in the past, but so stay tuned to both of those, CCS News and the listserv. So on September 30th, the night before we come back up online, Polaris is going to turn over the database to us. We're going to be doing, or the staff, CCS is going to be doing some Q&A. They're also going to load the remote offline files. And at 10:30, Polaris is going to remove the pack and the SIP redirects, and they're going to bring the API service back online. So those will all be running on production as of that point in time. So on the first, you'll want to bring your self-checks and your sorters back online. And be sure to wait for the all clear that you'll hear through CCS News or the listserv. You can always call us if you're curious and haven't received anything. Give us a call, and we'll tell you whether it's time to come up back online or not. For those of you who are going to use the self-check and offline mode, we haven't in the past and don't at this point have a plan to provide an error report for the transactions you upload, but there may be some that don't succeed. So Mieko did an hour-long talk about offline, both the timing of different things from the 26th through October 1st. And she talked specifically to the CERC staff on how to use offline. But it's a really good video. It's an excellent video, actually. And then here's another URL if you want to do some more reading about the migration. Sometimes it's best to read about the migration rather than to have somebody try to tell you what they think the migration, what this page may not say. From the desk of Mieko. So here's more information that Mieko wants you to have. Again, I'm going to send this to you after the meeting. You can read it. Since API is going to be offline, what we wanted to do is provide you with a list of vendors who did ask for an API key. We don't know if they're using API, but if they are, again, the service may be affected. So these are the vendors that we know who've requested an API key. You may want to reach out to them if you haven't already. Just another note from member services, call us at any time. The one thing that staff is going to be asked to do or is asked to do each time they log in, and they will be logging in several times a day to create various circulation transaction files. So every time they log in and log out, a transaction file is created on the terminal server. And so they're asked to do this several times a day to log in and out. When they log in, they're going to be asked to check the receipt printer settings. So I just want to make you guys aware that if these settings change, when somebody's standing there in the middle in the middle of the day and they don't know what printer to select, you may need to tape that to the monitor. That's about it that I have. That's all I have for the migration. Does anybody have any questions? No. So like I said, I'll be sending this out after the meeting to the IT listserv so that you have it. And that's all I have on the migration. And that's all I do have. There's a couple of interesting projects that are coming up in the next year. Some of the staff at CCS have been tasked to look into different packs. So we've got Biblioteca, that's one pack, and there are other packs that could connect to the Polaris server, Polaris database. So they're tasked in looking at that to see if we'd want to use Vega, which is the new Polaris product, or want to continue with the pack that we have, or switch to a third party. We're also some of the staff at CCS are tasked to look at a new data delivery tool. So right now we're using Tableau to deliver some data. The idea is that we would either switch from Tableau to a new product, or that we would use the new product in addition to Tableau. So I just wanted to make you guys aware. That's it. Michael, back to you.
I was gonna say thanks, Bob. Thanks for all that information. I feel like I was gonna ask one thing about that. I don't know. We'll see if it comes back to me. Um, but no, all of that's really good. The offline circ, at least for the whatchamacallit, one of the things I should mention we ran into last time was the self checks. If you do use it in offline mode, make sure you also have it set to auto upload upon reconnecting. Otherwise, you have to actually try and do that. And you can actually, I believe it shows if the data uploaded properly or not as well, if I'm not mistaken, at least for the Biblioteca self-checks specifically is what I'm talking about. So, um, but yeah, so, but all of that's great to know, familiarize ourselves, two new libraries joining. So exciting times.
Yeah, there's a lot of staff that have gone through this a couple of times, and of course next year Vernon Area Library is going to be coming on board at the same time. So uh, I'll just hang on to this document, and we'll add what we need to. But yeah, so for any of the new staff, it's always a good thing because I'm sure they've heard, even the new staff have heard this numerous times already. It's a little late in the game to be presenting some of this, so hopefully this is a review. Back to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, most of us, yeah, I think most of us here have all gone through this a number of times now. So it's just remembering all the steps each time. So having a document like this is good, just so we make sure we don't miss anything. Um, all right, I guess moving on here a bit. So we had some old business here. I just wanted to mention, obviously, our new, I want to say, team here, new officers, myself. Smarty is the vice chair, and then John is taking notes for us this year. So thank you. Um, and I guess going back to a couple of the other things from the notes, I guess I could ask you too, Bob. Did CCS get all the IP address info from everyone here that you guys needed for that whitelisting?
That's a good question. That I don't have the answer to, but
Okay.
there is no specific timetable for this. Um,
Okay.
but as soon as you can, yeah, as soon as you can get that to us, what I'll do is touch base with member services, and then I'll add something to the listserv, the IT listserv,
Okay.
as a reminder. And if there is a deadline, or if they want to put a deadline on it, we can. I'll put that in as well in the communication.
Um, and I guess a couple other things that we had left over last time, AI and libraries. If anyone has anything to say about the printing solutions, we talked about very briefly at the end last time. If anyone had any other further comment or anything else like that, um, I guess speak now. All right, doesn't seem like that needs to be addressed again. Um, so moving on to new stuff here. Uh, we had a question of what public charging stations does your library offer? So what here does everyone use? I know we at Wilmette use Charge Tech stations. We just upgraded ours recently. You just set them on the table. They have lightning cables, USB-C, and have provide for wireless charging if you place your phone on top of it as well. Um, so does anyone else have other things that they like to use or want to recommend?
Well, we have a charging station, but it doesn't get used. People don't like to leave their device there. So we've gone to getting individual chargers and cables that you can check out. And then we've got outlets all over the place on all the tables and that. So we've gone more of an individual route with charging. And these chargers can run your device. So it's not strictly for charging, but you can actually run a laptop off it or something like that, if that were the case.
At Prospect Heights is similar. We don't have any sort of station. We just have a very informal uh container of chargers. A lot of chargers that people like left behind and then they just go in the charger bin and technically someone signs it out, but it's really not that serious. It's not an actual checkout. Um It's just sort of a leave a charger, take a charger situation.
It's basically the same thing that Lincolnwood does. We have outlets all over, and people actually do formally check out chargers if they don't have them.
No, that's good to know. And I should say in our case, we've got like actual areas where people kind of meet. Like, so there's a snack area in the youth department there. So a lot of nannies and stuff like that will gather there and charge their devices while they're have bringing kids in for story time or some other youth program. Same thing with the teen room. We've got teens that come in there that want to gather and study and stuff like that. So we have it, in a centralized location there around like tables or whatever, so they can just plug in their phone so stuff can charge and they can use it while they study. So just a little bit different, and we don't have a lot. Like I say that we've got like 3 or 4 different ones, I think, at this point. But it's just got, I mean, I think it's kind of nice if people are in those spaces and meeting and stuff like that to have a convenient way without necessarily always having to check it out. So
It's the same for us. When we had a vending room, we had a small USB charging station in the vending room and people were using it. But now that we don't have that small vending room anymore, people just borrow chargers whenever they want, anywhere they are in the building and there are power outlets. We don't record who is checking out a charger.
At Glencoe, we have also started checking out power banks because we don't have outlets. And during study, the study time when the kids are in, they will just leave their phones right next to the few available outlets that we have. But anyway, we've been pretty successful with the power banks, especially since we had that fairly significant Glencoe-wide power outage a couple weeks ago with that big storm. But we've also been checking out chargers in there, and they're very popular.
cool, very cool. Yeah, so I think that answers that question. I think sufficiently. Everyone's basically using the regular chargers like I would expect for most people. And like I said, we just had charging stations when I got there, and so we just replaced them with the newer versions of them. So, but I will recommend if you are looking at them to look at Charge Tech. They're very good.
I do have a question on the people who check out these chargers. What happens if you have patrons that don't have a library card? What do they do?
For ours, it's not even an actual checkout on a library card. They just write their name down and then bring it back, and we write that they brought it back.
I don't know, at Glencoe, I don't know that has been an issue for us, but we're usually fairly trusting of people, and if somebody, wanted one and they didn't have a library card, we would probably give it to them, and if we lost it, we lost it. But that hasn't been an issue for us. So I guess if it becomes an issue, then we'll figure something out, but right now it isn't.
And I
We don't
can,
even ask for
I'm
their
sorry.
name. They just take it and they return it. So there is no record of what they're taking. But usually everybody is in the visual distance depending on where the desk is.
We send them over to the charging station that we have, which is relatively, well, it's in the corner somewhere plugged in, but that's their option.
and I can answer for Lincolnwood. We do actually require the checkout again. And I haven't heard that issue. We view it as kind of a little incentive for people to make sure their library cards are registered or to sign up.
All right, very cool, very good. Um, Moving on to, I guess, our next topic here, use of cloud servers. So who's using cloud servers for things, for what purpose? And do you guys have any reasons or situations for not using them at all? Like you thought about using one and then decided not to, or something else like that?
Yeah, Sikich, the company that we work with, was recommending that we do it, and it is a fairly steep cost at the very beginning. And we have decided not to do it for our next fiscal year because our current server is still fairly new. But we were just interested in, any sort of investigation that any other libraries went through. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us use TBS, and they don't have a product that is cloud-based, and so you would need to have something still on site. But we were just kind of interested. I mean, we sent out a query to this list and then to the Rails list, and I mean, I was just kind of surprised that there wasn't anybody that had done anything, because Glencoe is usually not the one. We're usually the one dragging. But so yeah, I was just interested. Justin, do you have anything you want to ask about that while we have the question out there?
I think the other thing that was the other app that was holding us back on that was so it looks like Deep Freeze has like a cloud connector where you can control it from the cloud, but not an actual cloud-based solution. That since that's something we use, we were also not really sure about using that in a cloud environment. Having the base software run in a cloud environment. There are some things we decided that we would try to migrate toward, we're gonna, try to get everybody using SharePoint, for example. So in the future, so right now we have two servers, like a public server and a staff server. We're thinking of trying to move more of our stuff on the staff server to apps that are entirely cloud-based, so that in the future we might just need the patron server until that bit gets comparable products. But that's kind of where we're at right now. But as Becky said, we've still got a few years left on our current hardware, so it's not an immediate thing where we would be switching toward in any case.
We're also in the middle of space planning, and we are hoping to do some sort of a building renovation in the next 18 months. So that might also be an impetus to move to something that's not going to take up as much space in like a LAN room or something like what we currently have now. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
This is Kevin with Huntley.
Oh.
I just wanted to say that we do use the Deep Freeze cloud version. Yes, it's got a footprint on the PCs, but the cloud manager is absolutely phenomenal compared to the on-prem one. And also we have put in SharePoint and migrated our Exchange fully to Microsoft 365 in the cloud. So we are pretty cloud-based other than the TBS anchor.
In Highland Park, we are moving what we can to the cloud. There's going to have to be stuff that's on premise. An example would be QuickBooks. Now, QuickBooks does have a cloud version, but when we tried it, it didn't have all the features that we wanted. So we did get a cloud server, installed QuickBooks on that, and we have a third party that needs to get into our QuickBooks. So that's one of the reasons too that they can get. There's 3 people that need to get into it, and they can get to it off-site because it's cloud-based. But we have a number of things that are in the cloud. So I'm really not sure what you're asking when you say about a cloud server. That's a little different than something that's cloud-based or software as a service. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Well, what we were Justin, I'll let you answer because you will answer better than I will.
Essentially they were talking about migrating the actual VMs to a cloud environment in for certain things, which is I think it makes more sense to kind of break up the individual services that have cloud components and you start using those instead of just migrating the whole, server running as it is to the cloud. So that's kind of more the route we're going. One other thing I was wondering about, I think Kevin, you mentioned about the cloud version of deep freeze. Was the migration to like from a local server install to the cloud install, was that pretty straightforward, would you say? Or do you have to basically set it up, do like a clean install in the cloud?
Um, when you install the cloud footprint onto the workstation,
Hmm.
it just shows up in the cloud manager. Now, I was also going through a hardware refresh, so all I did was one for one replace. As I put the new machine in, it had the cloud footprint, and I removed the old machine that had the local footprint and phased it out that way, basically. But I also use it to deploy new machines that aren't going to be deep freeze managed. I have groups and policies set up with all the base software. I add it to the cloud, boom, it installs the software. I remove it from the cloud, it's good to go. So it's got other
Okay.
uses too.
Okay. That's actually helpful because we are in the near future going to do a hardware refresh on the computers that use deep freeze. So yeah, maybe that would be a good time to switch over to the cloud.
It is a little pricier per license, but
Okay.
you get so much full control over it. There's a panel that shows where it's ready for RDP and whether it's. I mean, it's terribly useful.
Okay. How much like was it is it like how much more would you say is the cloud versus the local install?
I'd have to look it up off the top. Off the top of my head, I don't know. We
Okay,
said
that's okay.
I was going to do it for all my computers in the library and realized that the pricing didn't justify it. That's why I use it just to install the base software and then take it back off. But
Hmm.
I manage all of our public PCs that are the TBS public PCs. And
Hmm.
I also manage the PCs or laptops, I should say, that are in our tech lab, our education facility. So those always keep the right footprint without being able to be reinstalled every time there's a new class.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Does
thinking for
anyone
the
use deep freeze for staff?
I do not use the freeze for staff. No, they're limited by group policy what they can do, but we don't twist them down as far as replacing what they've done. I mean, let's face it, they make changes to the desktop settings. You move icons around, and then if you're using deep freeze, it's going to put the icons back where they were before. So we don't tweak them to that level.
We had tried that years ago, putting deep freeze on staff computers. It was such a headache. Everybody's, they're used to having control, and then you kind of take that away, and we abandoned that. That was 15 years ago.
If you delete files out of your downloads folder, your deep freeze will happily put them back. I mean, it frustrates people to no end.
Justin and Becky, so here at WNPL, what we do is we are on Microsoft 365. So most of the staff side stuff is already in cloud. And I've upgraded my license to Microsoft A3 from Office A3. And with that, I haven't tried it, but we get printing and remote help free. So you could think maybe in future, if you are also thinking of moving your print server to the cloud, that could be an option at least for the staff side, but I haven't attempted it. And what else? On the patron side, mostly everything is on Hyper-Vs. But we are trying to power down the servers as many as possible. What are we recently doing? We are moving to Open Athens. So then even all the proxy so we did not pick easy proxy. We picked up Open Athens for proxy management. So we are undergoing that project right now.
Okay.
I'll just add that we've used Deep Freeze Cloud. We recently put it in a makerspace and we got some laptops in there. And instead of because they were using Windows 11 and the rest of our environment is Windows 10. We put them on an isolated VLAN with Deep Freeze Cloud, and they've been fine. They've been great. And like Kevin was saying, the features that you get on it are so much nicer. But it does come as a cost. And I feel like it was a significant enough cost for me. Like when I looked to do what I was doing for the iMacs, we've got like 4 or 5 iMacs. The cost just didn't justify it to me at that point. So I'm just keeping our whatchamacallit, our regular Mac deep freeze to lock those down. So yeah, you can, and it'll be one of those things too, where like like if you've got a lot of them, like if you've got like 30 or 40, machines we're talking about, something like that, it's definitely worth it. It'll save you a lot of headaches to just migrate. And it's a completely different client. It's a completely different interface than what you'll see. It's very nice. It's very intuitive. You'll be able to see a lot more depending on the type of cloud plan you get. Just be aware there are different types. There's like, like kind of like a starter plan or your basic plan, and then stuff like that that you can add, like what I want to call other features or bells and whistles, depending on what you want to do. But it's a very complete solution. I think also a lot of us here, and someone can jump in if I'm wrong. I think a lot of us try and use software as a service just as a cloud-based feature in general for things, whether it be M365. We moved our phone system over to GoTo, so now I have a cloud-based phone system. Um, whatchamacallit, there's just going to be a lot of little things like that that, as you move forward, whether it be even like ticketing systems, Zendesk, for example, right? Cloud-based again. We're using also an interface for asset management with Zendesk as well, so that they talk to each other. So that's also super helpful. So I definitely suggest, especially when it comes to like looking to just migrate or moving like your existing servers to the cloud, you look at some of the products that you have and see if there's an actual cloud-based solution for it with a cloud-based interface. So then you guys don't have to worry about hosting it. Because when you do that, it's also there's the hosting fee and everything else on top of that, right? So
Right.
um, just keep those costs in mind and probably do some price comparisons between some of that stuff to see if, oh, maybe it's easier for me just to go to this new managed cloud service instead of, keeping the server or doing it this way. TBS, I know we do keep it on a local server or a virtual guest rather, at the library right now when we moved over to them from PC Res about a year or so ago. Their e-printed server is very nice and it is cloud-based for, well, I guess what it's worth. So is their eFax. So, but everyone that's you've been using those services really appreciates them and likes the flexibility. In fact, it's worse when it goes down because then people complain about it a lot more. So like you give people like, exactly what they're looking for and they're like, oh, this is great, this is great. And then it's like, oh no, wait, it's not working today, or it's down for a couple hours. So, but anyway, that's just kind of my 2 cents there. Anyone else has anything else to add?
Yeah, we did get the Scan Easy set up from TBS within the last year. That's been pretty successful. Yeah, the patrons seem to like it a lot, and that is also cloud based. I think the last time I talked to someone from TBS, I asked about what they were doing with as far as the other stuff going cloud based. It's something that they said that they have in development, but they didn't really have a concrete timeline on it.
Yeah, as far as I know, they outsource, well, they're licensed to whatchamacallit, use those other products, MyPC and PaperCut, right? Because they're different companies. So it really kind of depends on what those companies' timeline looks like. I do know that as new versions come out, TBS staff do test them, prior to release. So and go back with questions, or if they find issues or whatever, go back to them. So sometimes it takes a bit longer to get newer versions of their software out, but yeah, otherwise they're basically tied to whatever the development cycle is for those products. Anyone else?
I'm curious about the deep freeze drivers that get installed from the cloud. Is that any different than the hosted ones? Do you get lockup still, or
It's a completely different client, is what it is. It's not I haven't experienced anything like that. The same thing with as long as your laptop or wherever your device is has an internet connection, it restarts, unfreezes right away, pretty much. When for my experience with it, I haven't had any issues. Kevin, you could probably speak to that.
We have a current issue that has to do with a lot of factors. If it's Windows 11 and roaming profiles and something else, the latest version of the My PC console, which is a SaaS web portal thing, if a patron extends, I mean, this is, I'm saying all these conditions have to be met before the problem happens. If the patron extends, then the console portal loses them, doesn't see them on there anymore. And then it can cause a problem when their extension starts to run out. TBS is working on this, and what we did to get around it was we just set the base time at 3 hours instead of 1 hour, and nobody extends, so they don't trip over the problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, and also some of that could be related to just the roaming profiles in general. I haven't used them in Windows 11 yet. I heard they're not necessarily up to par as far as I know.
It's not an up to par. It's just that you got to be really careful with making changes to them and setting them up initially.
Okay, that's good to know. I think we're going to try and look to doing something different with them instead of using roaming profiles when we do our computer refresh. We're actually having a meeting today to order new hardware. So,
Yeah, I inherited the roaming profile environment, and you talk about people going through change. It would be such a massive change because we have people, that wander from their desks to the circulation desk or to whatever, and they want the same look when they show up. So yeah, I'll have a long uphill battle to wean them off of those.
I was going to say it's a convenience though, like you said though, because once people are used to it, and if that's how they're using it, like every time where they can just log in as themselves, well, then that's
Right.
it's hard.
We had roaming profile for both staff and patrons that I inherited. I got rid of both of them. It's so much easier now.
I could probably get rid of them on the patron side if I thought about it long enough, because it's the deep freeze and the roaming profiles together seem like, belt and suspenders. But on the staff side, it's, like I said, it's just I'll go fight one battle at a time.
But anyway, to answer John's question, I was gonna say other than that kind of hang up like that deep freeze, especially if you're using regular profiles, like I am just using local profiles on those laptops for the patrons that I have in the studio. They're fine. I've had no issues with it. So, does anyone have anything else to add? All right. Sounds like we're good, or looks like we're good here.
Thanks to everyone who responded. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So next thing we have here, security awareness training. So Brian, you wanted to talk about this?
Yes, yeah. So Lincolnwood Library is going to be rolling out security awareness training soon. Um, and I've been trying to stockpile like some bad emails I got to be able to have some real world training things, but I'm probably not going to have like a large enough archive to, continually have new training for folks. So I was just, probably when I get into the system, I'm going to see that they'll have some kind of preset topics ready to go. And I was wondering if anybody who has rolled out security awareness training, like has basically gone through those and decided, oh, we're not going to do this category. Like maybe if they do, like I don't know, like severance packages or something, that's kind of cruel to me. So if anybody's kind of gone through and customized anything like that, I'd be curious to hear. Thank you.
Are you doing no before?
No, we're not.
I
Yeah,
think the only customization I'd be concerned about is that it's something relevant to your organization. I mean, it doesn't have to be, it could be anything, but if it's something that would never be relevant to anyone in your organization ever, it's not that useful because it's really unlikely anyone's going to click on anything. That would be the only thing for me.
yeah, I was gonna say that's how I used no before, is I just didn't choose the stuff that wasn't gonna be relevant to staff at all. Like some of the stuff that, like you said, is maybe like healthcare wise, something like that, hospital stuff, things they're not gonna see. Like, are they gonna be approving, like quotes or something else like that, or I try and kept it to general stuff that they might normally see. And you typically, if you go in there, depending on whatever service you're using, I would assume that they have a list of stuff like that. And in my case, I just worked with the company with Know Before with my contact there, and they were able to guide me specifically what I wanted based on my conversation with them with my contact there. So they're very helpful, very knowledgeable. So I would advise doing that if you're not sure about some of the content that's in there when you're looking through it. So,
If you're, it sounds like you're doing this from scratch, like you're developing your own kind of emails to send to people. If correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I've been told Lincolnwood works with an MSP, and I've been told that that's one of the abilities that I can do custom messages along with their messages. So I just, I have 4 or 5, and anything I catch, I'm gonna kind of keep so that I could repurpose it for real world eventually.
Right. I'll tell you that the big ones that we have know before as well, but the big ones are HR related, something about their W-2s, W-9s, their schedule, Paylocity bank information needs to be updated. That catches some of the management team. Zoom meeting requests. I just fell for one the other day. We only because we were testing something out and it was just perfect timing. Know Before sent me this thing. I go, oh yeah, she sent me the test. So I opened it. Sure enough, it was a Know Before. It was listening.
yeah, the Know Before stuff is really good. I've gotten a few people caught on stuff. And I mean, even our director, the first time he got something, he's like, is this legitimate? And I'm like, thank you for catching that. No, it's not. But, no, all that stuff has been the same. And you can even go so far as like, if holidays are coming up, Know Before like has holiday sales and stuff like that. And that always gets people like you're getting the sale or something else like that. And they go to click on something or what have you. And yeah. So anyway,
You could do a
you can
potluck
be
sign
creative.
up link. A potluck sign up link got us once. Somebody clicked on a link to pay their own toll on an office email.
Oh, she's
So if you're thinking severance, I would just say don't send the same email to everybody. At least send 2, 3 kinds of email in that time that you're sending. Otherwise, then people talk to each other and they know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if your service will have that, but Know Before randomizes that stuff. So you kind of just choose the topics and the types of emails, and then they just go out to people in their groups. So hopefully, your service is something similar to that. It makes it very easy. So that way you aren't picking and choosing. You just choose from a pool, and you can choose specifically stuff within that pool if you wanted to. But I mean, aside from that, it's should hopefully be straightforward for you. But like, I think all of us here have been using Know Before, so. And
And Brian, do you have a plan what to do once they click or respond that they have received a email? So keep a plan ready. Like how are they supposed to report such emails? How are you going to communicate? Because eventually this is a training for the real thing, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna work on it.
I had created several emails using local area restaurants. Put an image in there even and offered a free coupon. And that worked fairly well. Some people fell for it. I had We had one person who got one for Dunkin' Donuts giving away free email or free donuts, right? Well, she didn't click on the link, but she just printed the email and then took it over to local Dunkin' Donuts and told them, you know, she wants her free donuts. They said, well, we have no idea what you're talking about, but here's a dozen donuts. They gave her the donuts anyways. So be careful what you create. You're going to create your own monster.
Very nice.
Thank you. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Brian, I think Know Before has a fish alert button which is free, which you install on your Office, Outlook. It might help people report suspected spam or phishing emails to whatever email address you want.
So Lincolnwood is actually not. I believe it's not Know Before. I'm just getting into this. And we're also not Outlook. We're Gmail. So, but yeah, no, I want to. I think potentially I haven't dug into it too much, but I think actually just our spam filter, I think basically has that feature. But yeah, I want to dig into that.
I was going to say you can look for the fish alert button. I think KnowBe4 offers it through Google Workspace or something, so you might be able to utilize that if you want to. All right, cool. Anything else with this? You good, Brian?
Yes, no, thank you. That was very helpful, everybody.
All right. Next thing we have here is DMARC issues. Again, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all, Brian, or how you want to.
Yeah, so basically anytime any of the major CCS list serves are used, status or even the IT one, um kind of randomized Lincolnwood, our spam filter will have certain messages rejected. Um so, I don't know what everybody's kind of posture is with DMARC and also DKIM, but that's where I've kind of tracked down some of the issues too. And, I am actively working this still. And obviously, in a couple weeks here, we're going to have a whole bunch of system messages with the downtime. So, one of the things I did was put in for all how many 28 or 30 libraries, DKIM exceptions into our system. So I just wanted to raise this with everybody, kind of see what everybody's doing with DMARC and see if anybody else is having any issues.
I was having issues at WNPL with CCS emails. I took a screenshot from my spam filter and sent it over to Bob. He made some change on his backend and then it started working for us.
So let me just add that within, long story. So the DNS used to be managed by Marson. That's all been turned over to OSG. And recently I discovered that we didn't have a DMARC, or it wasn't being published. Our DMARC record was not being published. This I discovered Wednesday, Thursday of last week. And I notified OSG. I am certain, 100% certain, that prior to identifying that issue Wednesday, Thursday, we did have a DMARC record that was being published. What OSG discovered was we did in fact have a DMARC record in our DNS configuration, but for whatever reason, it was not being published. So at this point, I've not heard back from OSG that it's all been corrected. But after the meeting, I'm gonna double check to make sure that our DMARC record is published. The listserv does not have a DKIM record. The listserv does not publish a DKIM record. Months ago, Google put out a notification and said, "Hey, in order for you to be able to deliver email to a Gmail account, you're going to have either an SPF record or a DKIM record." And we do have a valid SPF record. We've always had a valid SPF record. So there shouldn't, at least certainly with Gmail, there shouldn't be an issue with not having a DKIM record. But if that is now the case, please let me know. So if you're seeing that in the header somewhere, on received emails, yeah, let me know.
Thank you.
Cool. That's very good to know, I guess, at this point. I know we have ours registered, but I know I'm not really enforcing anything with them just because we've got too many people that I feel like outside vendors and stuff of that nature that haven't always configured them properly at this point. So, but that will probably be changed sooner or later here. Um, does anyone else have anything to say about it? I think it's pretty clear. Um, Last thing I just was going to mention for myself, really. So with implementing Zendesk, we have picked up two different asset management pieces of software. Asset Sonar for the IT management portion of it, and then they have a CMMS portion for facilities, which we're in the process of implementing too. And so we can tie that to the tickets. They can make purchase orders, work orders, assign different tasks to people, et cetera. It's kind of true asset management, even for the software. For example, I can list my cloud-based software. I can tie it to actual, things that are software that's on the computer. Like I can actually see all the stuff that's installed, tie the licenses that way, et cetera. I'm in the process of putting it together, but it's super convenient, super helpful. I can put all my documentation in there too at the same time for whether they be like invoices, et cetera, for the different companies that we're contracted with, have my renewals set up, et cetera. And I'm just curious if anyone else has tried using a cloud-based one or has something what I want to call like robust like that, because that's actually my first experience with something like that. But it was also because when I came here, we were using spreadsheets for everything, and I'm like, I need to do something else, and it just made sense for Zendesk, especially to start tying that stuff to the ticket so I can have all the tickets tied to the equipment so I can see specifically even by equipment how many tickets are open. Was this always failing? Is this replaced or whatever? And have dates and everything else like that kind of in one place for me to reference as well. The other nice thing about it is the agent that you install on there pulls everything. So if it's plugged into a USB drive, like barcode scanner, receipt printer, that's detected. Same with the monitors that are plugged in. Monitors give me the serial numbers as well as the type as well. So I have found it very convenient to use. But anyway, that's just me, I guess, spouting about it. But does anyone have anything else that they use that they really like?
Before WNPL went to Zendesk, we were using SolarWinds Web Help Desk, and they came with a free asset management system along with it. But we are also on Zendesk. So currently now I've shifted over to Excel sheet and I'm shopping around for this soon.
Yeah, well, then I highly recommend Asset Sonar. You are actually able to get a deal if you do like 2 years or something. They give you 20% off. And like I said, it integrates directly into Zendesk. So that's definitely something for you to take a look at. The guys there too, I can send you their info or whatever, but they're very nice to work with. I mean, I've had a real good pleasure working with them. So, all right.
Hi, this is Isaac over at Waukegan Public Library.
Hey.
So we actually use a program called SysAid. So and it pretty much does like the ticketing system. It does asset management for us as well. It pulls all the information, hardware, software. You can push out patches. There is a patch portion to it as well. I believe that's an extra feature though. And you can use it for like if you have your maintenance team who needs service tickets as well, you can do it for that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, for our Zendesk solution, we're doing both facilities and IT. So we're doing it. So we have separate categories kind of. They kind of go to one portal, choose if it's an IT related issue or facilities, and then kind of has a drop down list and goes from there, depending on what the issue is after you choose the main category. So.
Okay, I have an update. After months of asking questions about ePay and payment, finally we've moved to Square and ePay. So thank you for all the feedback you guys gave us. We are letting go of Comprise.
Good. All right. Does anyone have anything else to say about this? And otherwise, I'll move on to our last thing here.
Does our CCS vendor spreadsheet include any asset management category?
I should probably know this, but I don't.
Well, if not, we can
I
add it.
I don't think so, but it'd be easy to add it. It's a spreadsheet. Someone could add an asset management software column.
That sounds like a good idea for those of us using it. It'll be an easy reference for everything, especially if we're looking at different products for that as, like I said, as things become, I don't say just more complex.
And does everybody that's on this call know about the spreadsheet? Or is there anybody that is on the call that doesn't know anything about the spreadsheet? That's probably the good question.
I think all of us are pretty much aware of it. So, but yeah, we'll have some new people here soon, I'm sure, and they might not be aware. So, last thing I have on here, next meeting date and place. So you guys want to have a December meeting? Do we want to have, or just have one in March and skip December? I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys here. Typically, it would be, what is it, like the third week of December or something else like that, and that is not not ideal on any stretch of the imagination. So we might want to change that to a different time here, or a different date rather. Just pull up a calendar here real quick. So like typically it would be like December 17th, which I think is too late. If we do have one in December, do you guys want to do like maybe the 10th or the just beginning of the month of December? So you guys have it. Anyone have a preference here to keep the meeting in December and also like just have an earlier date?
Yeah, I'd vote for an earlier date in December.
Good.
I agree. And if we don't have anything on the agenda, we can cancel it, but let's at least have it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Earlier December date would be good.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, yeah, just agreeing earlier December date.
Earlier in December?
Yeah.
So do you guys have a specific date? Do we want another Tuesday? Does that work? Do we want a different day? Like, do we want to just do the 10th? Would that work for people, you think? Do it a week earlier. Like I said, I'm open to suggestions here if anyone has a specific.
Just out of curiosity, are these meetings always scheduled for the third Tuesday?
Yeah, typically, as far as I know, right, Bob? I think that's usually the case. Oh, you're muted.
I'm a little new to this, so I'm just going to agree.
Yeah, typically.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Not complaining is just my luck that third Tuesday is the board meeting I have to record. So then it becomes a 9 to 9 day. Not complaining. I'll take some time off some other day. That's why I missed the last meeting actually.
I was going to say, Smriti, that's the same thing with me. Tonight's our board meeting. I have to go to it tonight for our approval of our new computer equipment that hopefully they approve. So 100 desktops, 30 laptops. So hopefully it goes through without any problems, but I got to be there tonight. So I understand.
I was just curious how many people have recently undergone or are undergoing a space audit because we just finished a space audit and I'm listening more and more people are going through it now.
We are too.
What
Sorry, go ahead.
What is a space audit?
It's so space needs assessment, like you do this typically in process before renovation to see how you're going to be able to utilize the space or how it's being utilized now versus how, like, based on what the community wants, what they've been asking for, stuff like that. And typically, at least as far as I know, that's how it kind of works, is that you go through all your spaces in the library, or at least the spaces that are going to be renovated. If you're only going to do, like, let's say a floor or something else like that, um, you go through that and decide how that's going to end up looking.
So you
Um,
hire an auditor, he visits your library for like 2, 3 days, sees how patrons are using the library and gives better space adjustment options. And they may not be infrastructure, they may be infrastructure change, just how to better utilize the space that you already have and how are patrons using your library.
Well, we're currently doing a space plan right now. We started back in the spring, and we sent out a request for proposal, and a bunch of architects submitted proposals, and then we selected one. And so they've put together a plan that they are presenting. We have our board meeting tomorrow. They're presenting it a second time tomorrow, and then we will present it to the community too, with the larger objective of doing some level of renovation. But we did a strategic planning last year and took this and did a patron survey and took a lot of what patrons said about what they'd like to see in the library. And also we did a capital needs assessment. Well, it's been 4 years ago, and there are significant building issues with our 80-year-old building, and so all of that needs to be taken care of. So that's what we're doing, but they haven't formally decided to do a renovation, but that's what the hope is.
All the best. That's a big project, even for IT, once it rolls out. So, space audit comes somewhere in between. We did our capital needs assessment, we did our strategic plan, which had spaces as an item, and we also did a survey with the patrons. On top of it, we've done this, and now there will be an architect bidding, and then short-term or long-term changes, whether they're infrastructure or not.
Well, Justin and I really, really, really just want more outlets. Something so basic like that, it would be a dream. So there's lots of stuff to consider. Money, of course, being the biggest of them all.
yeah, I mean, there'll also be other things depending on how big your renovation is, right? Like, you probably don't want them moving where the server room is, or if you do, that's going to be, large expenses, stuff like that, to try and move stuff like that around. Um, other things like that, or if there were they're placing the patron PCs. Okay, maybe you're gonna put them in a different room or something else like that, then we're gonna have to run more cables, whatever else like that, and there'll be other logistic stuff. But in general, that's like I said, basically it's a kind of like, oh, how can we better utilize the space? Basically.
I'm already putting an item for next meeting now. So we are planning to get these pod rooms where patrons can just step in and it has a transparent door and they can take meetings or call in them. So they are like a phone booth.
It's interesting. I've seen smaller pods. I think when I went to Cook Memorial, they have something like that, but they're seated or something else like that. So, um, but yeah, I mean, it's convenient and people do use them, and then, they can do their work.
I think that Skokie used to have something like that. I don't know that they use it anymore, but I think they used to have, like, basically a phone booth kind of thing for patrons to take calls.
Or at least a phone area or something. I haven't been there since they renovated, though, after the pandemic. I should go over there again and see what that looks like now.
Was one of the libraries we toured last summer, and I didn't notice that they had a phone booth, because I'm sure we would have taken pictures of it.
Yeah, I know they added meeting rooms and some other stuff. A lot of the second floor is very different than what it was. So, but they do renovation every 10 years, Skokie does. So, I mean, it's just basically in their budget every 10 years they do space needs and have an architect come and then they Just probably basically redo the library. So, all right, cool. All right, so for right now, I'll put out, we'll just say December 10th, Tuesday. I'll make that for our next meeting. So we'll add that here. Is there anything else before we adjourn? Are we all good? All right.
I just
What?
want to say that I did check the DMARC and it's being published now. So whatever problems existed or were with the DMARC should.
Okay. Awesome. That's good to know. Thanks so much, Bob. All right. So motion to adjourn. One.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Second.
I'll second.
Awesome. Thanks. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good rest of the have a good few months. So we'll see you guys in December. All right. Take care.
See you then.
Bye.